Hey Astro Kids, and welcome back. This is your November 2020 horoscope for Scorpio, Sun, Moon, Rising, Venus, or Mars. So this is your November 2020 horoscope for Scorpio, Sun, Moon, Rising, Venus, Mars. So any prominent Scorpio placements in your chart, this will have a huge impact. And we are in the season of Scorpio, so happy birthday to all of the Scorpios out there. We are going to start off, and if you see me looking down, this is me just checking on making sure that everything is correct in my memory. So starting off, we have Mercury stationing direct at 25 degrees of Libra. So this is Mercury finally coming direct. We've all been going through this Mercury retrograde, and it has settled down since it has entered into the sign of Libra. So very intense as it was going through Scorpio, especially for those of you here with Scorpio rising, as it was going through your first house, where there's been a lot of changing, a lot of rearranging, having to do with self. And so if you found yourself isolating, if you found yourself wanting to take a deeper look at who you are and the changes that need to be made, this has been the time for that. And it has continued as Mercury has retrograded back into your 12th house, dealing with the subconscious, dealing with hidden things. So a lot of searching, a lot of changing as far as looking at things on a deeper level. And so a lot of change that has been going on identity-wise, but also in terms of your subconscious, making those deep internal changes. So a lot of reflection, a lot of review on yourself that's been going on here for those of you with Scorpio rising, and even for those of you with strong Scorpio placements as well, some of you feeling the effects of this Mercury retrograde in terms of isolation, in terms of wanting to take a deeper look, wanting to make those necessary changes in your life. And as Mercury stations direct, this will be a moment of finally putting those changes into effect, finally seeing things moving forward for many of you who have had plans or decisions that need to be made in terms of you and yourself. This is where things get started moving again. And this is Mercury stationing direct in Libra. So it is still in a major spot where it needs to clear this retrograde. It needs to pass where it started retrograding at. And so it is going to have to move back through Scorpio. And as it shifts from your 12th house back into your first house, this is where many of you will see some huge changes take place because you're pulling this out of your subconscious and back into the front of view. So many of you here making these deep inner changes, not necessarily seeing the results yet. This will come to fruition as we shift back into this. And what an interesting position for Mercury to station direct on election day. So a lot of changes, a lot of unusual scenarios that can show up here in terms of the world, but also in terms of you yourself. And many of you who have Scorpio rising will see this play out as this is in your 12th house moving into your first house. So a lot hidden behind the scenes that will come into the front of view for many of you here. Moving on ahead, on the 12th, we have Jupiter coming into an exact conjunction with Pluto. So we saw this conjunction earlier this year on January 11th, where Jupiter and Pluto met up. And this has been a major conjunction that has been shifting changes in the world, as Jupiter is a big player in the world in terms of religion, in terms of money, in terms of our government, in terms of laws. And so a lot that has been shifting and changing. This Jupiter-Pluto at the beginning of the year has been a catalyst for change. And we will see that Saturn-Jupiter conjunction later on that will be an even greater catalyst for change following the election. So a lot of things that are shifting and changing in the world, pushing us forward, a lot that is coming up in terms of the tides, in terms of the difficult situations and the moments of radical change and breakthroughs that are showing up, especially with that Uranus in Taurus, which for many of you is showing up in your seventh house of relationships. So, huge player right now is this Uranus and Taurus, especially for those of you with Scorpio rising, as there can be a lot of shifts and changes happening within your friendships, within your business partnerships, within your marriages, and within the way that you're showing up in your business life and world. So, a lot of shifts and radical changes happening here in terms of how you're dealing with other people. Now, next we have Mars finally stationing direct on the 13th. And so this is a major moment as Mars, the ruler of Scorpio, has been in this retrograde. So a lot of major changes happening, especially for those of you with strong Scorpio influences, as this is one of your rulers. And so Mars in this retrograde has been a big time of deep reflection, deep internal work in terms of looking at those changes, looking at new decisions and new places that need to be taken on at this time. For many of you who have been going in with brute force, many of you who have been going in with this straightforward attitude, some of you finding that there needs to be a detour or a new approach to get to your goals, to get things done. And so for many of you, depending on where your Mars is positioned in your chart, this can play out as low energy. This can play out as getting stuck in difficult situations, finding yourself stuck at roadblocks where there needs to be a shift that happens. There needs to be a different strategy, a different way of approaching things. And for many of you, this is a strong ability that is already in you as a Scorpio. This ability to really sit with things and calculate and plan out a better approach. But for those of you with Scorpio, there's also this emotional element to it as well, where you don't want to get in your emotions and your feelings about these choices and decisions that need to be made. So for many of you, letting those emotions pass instead of making those quick, rash decisions and really trusting your instincts, your intuition, following your gut, as Scorpio is a very intuitive sign. Now, on the 21st, we have Venus entering into your sign, Scorpio. So Venus will be shifting into your first house for those of you with Scorpio rising. For those of you who have other Scorpio placements, this will also affect you as well, as this is Venus meeting up with your other placements and positions. And so Venus in Scorpio is a very intense transit. Venus is in detriment in Scorpio. As we know, Scorpio is all about the passion, the drive, the intensity, and this Venus is more about peace, beauty, pleasure. And so this is a very intense transit that is coming in, where Venus and Scorpio can be a moment of taking on intense pleasure, of finding yourself attaching to these short term pleasures instead of your long term needs or long term goals. So, for many of you, this is a big time of making sure that you're not getting into addictive habits, into destructive habits. Of trying to take in all of these pleasures, trying to take in all of these short lived experiences. When there is a big goal, there is a big mission ahead of you, especially for those of you with this in your first house, with this Mars retrograde strongly affecting you. Wherever this is in your chart, this is a huge moment to not overindulge, to not get into destructive behaviors. This Venus in Scorpio wants an intense attachment. So making sure that you are attaching to what is healthy for you and not attaching to something that is negative, something that will have a destructive impact on your life at this time. Especially coming ahead of these nodal shifts that we will see, where the nodes will shift to Taurus and Scorpio. And so as that north node is going to shift and getting ready to shift here into Taurus, we are going to see that south node in Scorpio, where many of you are going to have a main focus on relationships, on how you're connecting with people, on your business partners, on how you're moving forward in life. So, a lot of life lessons that are coming from your identity, coming from who you are, and how you're connecting with others, that is coming up here very soon. And huge moment of money and financial matters, as Scorpio and Taurus are both of our money signs. So, moving forward, we have the Sun entering Sagittarius as well on the same day here on the 21st. This is ushering in a new season where we are shifting from Scorpio to Sagittarius. And so we are really going from deep underground to this high enlightenment, right? This is the rise of the phoenix shifting from Scorpio to Sagittarius, where Scorpio is going deep within, making those necessary changes, facing the darkness, going through crisis. That is that burning of the phoenix going into the ashes, and as we shift into Sagittarius, we rise out of those ashes into the light. So, a lot of shifting that is going on here in terms of rising into consciousness, rising into the light, and especially for those of you with Scorpio rising, as this is a big need for many of you, is finding the truth, discovering your higher purpose, gathering this higher meaning, this higher intellect in life. So, the truth is a huge part of Scorpio, and that is that shift into Sagittarius as we're digging deep into Scorpio, finding that truth, finding those changes that need to be made. We're rising out of it into the light. So, a huge moment as the sun is shifting into Sagittarius. And for many of you, this sun entering into your second house, highlighting your money, highlighting your security, highlighting your values, highlighting your self worth. And so there has been a huge focus on identity as the sun has been here in Scorpio for many of you, as your sign is Scorpio, really looking at your identity, really looking at who you are. And as we come into this shift here, this is this moment where many of you will feel more secure, more stable, or you will find yourself in issues and difficulties around security, as this is for you to build up your self worth. This is for you to build up your self esteem with this sun coming into the second house. Moving ahead here, we have Neptune stationing direct on the 28th. So we've seen this Neptune retrograde for a very long time. And this is a Neptune in Pisces that we will see for a very long time as well, as this is this moment of the media, of illusion, of seeing things from different perspectives. What is your visual perspective, and is it reality? Is it truth? We just came out of that Neptune retrograde where it has been an internal journey of discovering what is fact and what is fiction, what is true and what is just the dream, what is the haze, what is the illusion, as this Neptune has gone through this retrograde. And for many of you here, this Neptune has been doing a lot of work in your fifth house, where it has been about your pleasures, where it has been about your connection to children, your connection to the things that you love, romance, beauty, really figuring out what is really true for you, what is really real for you, what is just an illusion, what is just a facade. And especially as that eighth house has been in, especially as that North Node has been in your eighth house for quite a while now with that Gemini North Node. This has really been about going deeper, being more vulnerable, finding better ways of connecting. So there is a lot of fogginess or illusion around connection, relationships, romance, the things that you love, finding that true connection. And is it something that holds worth? Is it something that holds value in your life? Big question that is coming up here. Moving ahead, we have on the last day of November this full moon lunar eclipse in Gemini. So for many of you, this is a full moon lunar eclipse that is taking place in your eighth house. And this is a penumbral lunar eclipse, so not quite as powerful as a total eclipse. But this is a brand new eclipse season that is taking off of this North Node in Gemini, right? Our last eclipse we did not have an eclipse in Gemini. We had it in Cancer. So this is a major shift that is happening here as we're having this full moon in Gemini with an eclipse. So this is going to be a huge moment of truth over belief, and a huge moment of needing to release the information that holds you stuck in just what is belief and just what are the stories taking you towards the truth. And so, what are those little beliefs and those little truths that you try to hold on to from outside sources, from what you see, and what is the divine truth? Finding and discovering what that truth is for you. And as this is taking place in the eighth house, for many of you, that truth is what is hidden. It is a secret. It is a moment of crisis. It is something that is shared. And so, for many of you, this is a moment of facing challenges, of facing difficulties, of facing crisis, of facing your past, your trauma. What have you attached to emotionally that needs to be cleared out, that needs to be let go of, so that you can see the divine truth, so that you can see the truth of what is really happening for you. Now, I also pulled some cards for November as well. And starting here, we have the first card with the Four of Swords in reverse. And so for many of you, there is this strong need to drive towards what you want. Many of you want things much faster than they are coming. And so there's a struggle here with patience. There is a strong lesson around patience for many of you. If you have been struggling, if you have not been seeing the results that you wanted, this is a moment of continuing to push through, continuing to do the work, continuing to believe in what is coming, because this is a slow moving process for many of you as far as what is coming, as far as what is unfolding. With this North Node in Gemini in the eighth house, many of you trying to hold on to something emotionally, trying to get that emotional gratification very quickly. And this goes along with that Venus in Scorpio, where many of you might be seeking pleasure. You might be seeking that short-term gratification. Big moment of waiting, big moment of realizing that something bigger is coming. This waiting, this time of things not going your way, this is a huge sign that there is something big that is on the way for you. So huge moment of being patient, huge moment of continuing to believe, to continue to move forward, and to not find yourself in a place of depression or loss or giving up or putting in the chips, right? Scorpio is all or nothing. So many of you in this nothing mentality of pulling out of whatever it is that you've been working and planning on, but huge reminder to continue to keep going, continuing to keep going all in on your dream, on your goals, on whatever it is that you are working on right now, not giving up, not running away, not pulling out of what it is that you are so passionate and driven about. Our next card here is the Three of Swords in reverse. And so with the Three of Swords in reverse, this is a huge moment of letting go of sorrow, right? This is a huge moment of clearing. And we talked about this earlier with that North Node in Gemini and that full moon penumbral lunar eclipse that is happening in the eighth house. Huge time to clear out old trauma, old emotional attachments, old difficulties, old struggles. This Three of Swords in reverse, huge moment of releasing and letting go of what no longer serves you. Our next card here is the Knight of Swords. And with the Knight of Swords, once again, keep going. This is our challenge card, pushing forward. Keep moving along your path. So many of you are being faced with adversity. Many of you are being faced with this feeling of it not working out, it not going as planned. Remembering that this waiting period is for something big to come into your life. And so for many of you who feel like this is a moment of silence, a moment of nothing happening, a moment of the things that you've planned not going the way that you wanted them to, Huge time of just continuing to persevere, continuing to do what you're doing, and you will see those results later. Our next card here is the Seven of Wands. So this is a time once again to keep going, right? Our next card in the sequence after that Seven of Wands is our Eight of Wands, where we're getting into that self-mastery. So huge time to continue to push forward, to continue to keep moving along your path and to plant those goals and those achievements that you are trying to accomplish. Our next card here is the Queen of Cups in reverse. And so again, putting yourself in that positive mindset where everything is flowing, where you are believing in where you are along your journey. So huge time of letting go of those old emotional attachments that no longer serve you, going in the flow of the universe, in the flow of your intuition, your internal knowing, right? Scorpio is such an intuitive sign, using those gifts, continuing along that path, pushing forward. Our next card here is the Seven of Swords in reverse. So huge moment of finding that peace and harmony within yourself, finding that center, finding that calm, of continuing to go through the storm, continuing to put in the work, right? Huge time going back to that Knight of Swords to keep pushing forward. We are letting go of the old, letting go of the old story, the old sorrow, letting go of this feeling of loss or doubt or failure, pushing forward, pushing ahead as there is something big that is on its way for you. Our next card here is the fifth house in reverse. So once again, many of you disconnecting to what you felt so passionate, so driven about. But remembering that this is Neptune in your fifth house, that not everything is what it seems to be. So for those of you who are giving up, for those of you who are feeling this detachment of changing or throwing in the towel, pulling out, continuing to push forward, continuing to put in the work is extremely necessary here. Once again, fourth house in reverse, letting go of those old feelings, those old attachments, letting go to what is ever going on in that subconscious, right? We're having this Mercury retrograde close out in your 12th house, where there can be a lot of emotional attachments, a lot that is going on here as far as what needs to be cleared out and removed. So huge time for that, and remembering that Saturn Jupiter conjunction is going to show up down in your fourth house for many of you, where this is going to give you that strong sense of change, of movement that you were looking for. Next card here is the second house in reverse. Very significant, as your second house is where the South Node is at. This is where Ketu is in Sagittarius. So for many of you, you are in this space of learning how to let go, of learning how to trust in the hidden forces that are guiding you, learning how to go into the unknown, taking the chances, making the changes that are necessary. So this is a journey of learning to trust, of learning to find that deeper connection and letting go of this need for security or this need for comfort that is happening in that second house. Last card here is Saturn. Once again, major truth that is coming out for you here in this month of November. And with the Saturn card here, this is a slow process, remembering that Saturn is limiting and restricting. And there's a lot of this Saturnian energy as we have Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter sitting there in your third house, where you are looking to master something. You are looking to put your ideas into something. You're looking to create something there with that third house. So many of you have these ideas, you have these plans, you have these things that you're trying to put together, but that heavy conjunction of Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter in Capricorn in your third house, making it very challenging, making it very difficult. And so this is a time of mastering yourself. This is a time of continuing to push forward, continuing to work towards what it is that you want. Not giving up, learning to trust in the unknown is a huge lesson that is coming up here for many of you with Scorpio. We had some extra cards that came out as well. We have Pisces in reverse, and notice that Pisces motto is I believe. So for many of you, difficulty with believing, difficulty with trusting, especially with this Neptune in your fifth house. What are these hobbies, these interests, these creative skills, these things that we can put to test, especially to make that career work, to put out our expression? Do we believe in that? Do we still have hope in that? Are we still putting everything into that? Huge question coming up for many of you. Our next card here is Taurus in reverse. And for many of you, this is where you have Uranus in your seventh house of relationships, where there is a lot of ups and downs, a lot of changes that are happening as far as what you are committed to. And with Taurus here in reverse, many of you, once again, looking for that solid ground, looking for that security, looking for that backbone, something to trust in to tell you that you are moving in the right direction. And with Taurus in reverse, we need to find this trust within ourselves. Last two cards here are the Page of Pentacles and the Empress. So once again, finding that truth within yourself, continuing to work towards your goals, that Page of Pentacles, studying, planning, working, building something up from the ground. And this Empress of doing what you're passionate about, doing what you love, doing what is in divine order with you. Okay, so finding that comfort, finding that joy, that hope in doing what you love, continuing to push through with the passion, with the experience, with the knowledge, with everything that you're studying and working on. So a lot of perseverance that is needed for many of you here as we are shifting into November of 2020.